My relation with the Ratchet & Clank series is somewhat unique. The first time I ever saw it was on a PS2 demo kiosk in a Target once. I didn't think about it again until years later when a Let's Play I watched played the first couple on their channel, and I was like, oh, cool, seems fun. Then, even more years later, Sony gave away the PS4 reboot for free, finally giving me my first hands-on experience with the series. Now I know the reboot isn't the most loved game in the series, but I had a solid time with it. The levels were well designed, all the guns rocked, and while the narrative was hampered by being a movie tie-in, simply playing it made me really excited to see what Insomniac could do with their PS5 sequel. Which turned out not to be a sequel to the reboot, but a continuation of the original story I really didn't know anything about. Why is Captain Quark a good guy again? Who's this robot guy? Wait, did they set up the Dimensionator in an earlier game? None of these questions are actually answered. Instead, Insomniac mostly just made a fresh slate by moving it to an alternate dimension. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart opens up with the titular characters being celebrated for, well, just existing at this point. The duo are rusty from years of lazing about, but are able to jump right back into it when the evil Dr. Nefarious rears his ugly metallic head. He's not ugly. I'm sorry, Dr. Nefarious, I didn't mean it. Anyway, Nefarious is after this gun called the Dimensionator, a gun that'll let you travel to different dimensions. Apparently it was broken in a previous game, I guess, but Clank fixed it up for Ratchet as a gift. Whoops, Nefarious got it and sent the three of them into a dimension where Nefarious always wins, breaking the Dimensionator in the process. And from here on out, the game plays out very much like the first or the reboot. There are a series of planets the protagonist goes to, each having a list of collectibles. The big twist this time around being Ratchet is only in half the game. The other half is centered around his alternate dimensional counterpart Rivet, and she's really cool. Excellently played by Jennifer Hale, Rivet is both wonderfully written and has a very good, if bit derivative, origin story. She's witty and cares about others but is haunted by her past, and sports a sick robot arm from a previous mishap. This is also how they get around the potential knowledge gap for newer players. New protagonists, new worlds, new characters, and any returning characters are alternate dimensional counterparts akin to Rivet. Anything else can mostly just be hand-waved away. The previous villains being good? Who cares? The Dimensionator? It's broken now, so go and fix it. The main conflict is the same as it always is. I'm guessing. Defeat Dr. Nefarious. To do so, they need to fix the Dimensionator. To do that, they have to go to a bunch of different planets and shoot a bunch of really cool guns. Each planet usually has two objectives, the main quest and the subquest. The main quest progresses the story, the side quest usually nets money, a gold bolt, an infobot, or a new piece of armor. In most levels, the main questline is fairly linear. Ratchet or Rivet have to fight off numerous baddies while sometimes sidetracking for a collectible. The side quests usually have the player collecting world-specific items, which really encourage the exploration of each area. And being a sci-fi game inspired heavily by the Star Wars, every world is such a visual and unique feast. The first planet, Nefarious City, is a huge metropolis filled with derpy-looking robots, neon signs hanging on every building, and hovercars speeding between them. The second world, Sargasso, is a bright yellow and brown swamp planet filled with dinosaurs and cute and fuzzy Midwesterners called Morts. But regardless of the setting, every planet is so stunning. All the colors are bright and vivid, the models have become so detailed, and the animations are incredibly fluid. And now with the power of the PS5, the gameplay is locked at a 60 FPS, and so many metallic surfaces have ray-traced lighting. This especially helps in the earlier worlds when the critical paths are uninterrupted and linear. It might be a straight line, but it's a really pretty one. Of course, along this uninterrupted path, multiple different events can occur. The most common are enemies. Ratchet or Rivet have to shoot their way out of many situations, occasionally relying on a melee weapon if it really comes to that. Which for me, never happened. Then there is a new feature, rifts. These rifts are platforming sections utilizing the incredible movement in the game, and more often than not reward the Lombaxes with a new armor piece. And of course there's boxes to slam, which reward the player with bolts, weapon ammo, and the occasional raritanium. Bolts are used to buy new guns and raritanium is used to upgrade them. And I tell you what, With the PS5 controller's new feedback, collecting bolts has never felt better. Each one that flies into the Lombax shakes the controller just a bit, making an already rewarding feeling of number going up even better. Collecting bolts isn't the only thing that Insomniac made feel good. Coming off of the recent Spider-Man games, it's clear the devs at Insomniac have become masters at game feel. Jumping is satisfying, hovering is good, but the additional movement options of dash and rift grappling make the combat feel perfect. The Lombax is able to teleport behind enemy lines using these smaller rifts, much like a grappling hook, and dash allows much tighter mobility. Hopping, dashing, and teleporting around your enemies feels fluid, like a wonderful and deadly dance. The dash and rifts also make the aforementioned platforming much better too, and the introduction of speed boots makes general traversal great. After pumping alternating triggers, the current Lombax starts flying across the world. They have a reduced turn radius but go so fast, and the action of pumping the triggers first makes the whole experience incredibly rewarding each time. And this is all on top of how good each gun feels to shoot. Using the triggers as best they could, Insomniac put in 2 modes for most guns. Pulling down halfway shoots off one type of projectile. Pulling the rest shoots off a bigger version of it. And while this emulated version never feels as good as the GameCube controller's shoulder pads, it still works really well. On top of it feeling good to shoot, all the guns are just really fun. The initial pea shooter kinda sucks, but after that everything is so innovative. The game doles out pistol-like guns, shotgun-like guns, guns that shoot a sprinkler and grow vines around nearby enemies, locking them in place. You know, the usual. A core mechanic of Ratchet & Clank games is slowly rotating through the weapon wheel, using whichever is best in the situation, or whichever still has ammo left. This can lead to a very fun pattern where you're constantly swapping, freezing enemies in place, dashing up close to blast them with the shotty, and sniping further away enemies with longer range weapons. And as you use each weapon, it slowly levels up. As each weapon levels, it can be upgraded more, making it even more powerful. That is, until it reaches the cap of level 5, then you don't touch it again, ever. But there's always more weapons to level, and if proper rotation was executed, the next gun you can buy will act pretty similarly to the one you just maxed out. But now it has a fun mechanic like electrifying all nearby enemies. But not every level is just platforming and battles. A few levels culminate in some of the funnest action set pieces I've ever seen in video games. Sometimes Ratchet has to race along a crumbling track, or maybe Rivet has to glide along rails, hopping for her life to avoid oncoming obstacles. These moments have fast-paced music with action happening on every inch of the screen. They are so fun every time a new one pops up. Upon replaying, it becomes clear they were all designed to give the player enough time to not mess up too often, to make the player feel like they're in danger, to emulate close calls. But none of that matters, because in the middle they are just so fun and exciting. All this movement, all this amazing combat really shines in the levels that are less linear. As soon as the jet boots are given to the Lombaxes, the worlds open up to accommodate. Now the player has a huge landscape to jet across. It almost feels like playing a level from Mario Odyssey, but in space! And you have guns too. I love exploring large worlds for a series of collectibles, and regardless of how open each world is, Rift Apart nailed that aspect. And to keep track of everything, Insomniac made a really good update to the map. As Ratchet or Rivet walk, their map is filled in. If a collectible is within the radius of the character, it pops up on the map. This makes it so much easier to see where the Lombaxes have been, and to see if they've missed anything in a certain area. Plus, the collectible totals are displayed to the side of the map, so there's never any doubt how much is left. Also, there's a later item that just displays the location of everything on the map, whether you've been there or not. With how fun it is to move in this game and how seamless the map has become, collecting everything is a breeze. Usually, once per level, there is also an entirely different gameplay segment that either Clank or Ratchet's new friend Glitch play. Clank has to solve fun physics-based puzzles. The sections are fairly short, there's only a few in the game, and the dialogue during is always entertaining. They never outstay their welcome. Glitch's segments are twisted whirls where she has to shoot bugs in the code. The camera is locked behind her spider-like body, which might cause some motion sickness as she climbs up walls and eventually hangs upside down over the level. I didn't care much for these segments, but again, there's only a few and they're all fairly short. One thing that both of these minigame segments did amazingly well was highlight just how good the game looks. Most of the surfaces in these segments fully utilize ray tracing, and the lighting looks fantastic. Despite the useful skip feature, which allows you to just skip these segments entirely, I played through every one of these levels during both of my playthroughs, just so I could look at them. So far, I've been speaking very highly of Rift Apart. It's fun to move, the combat feels great, all the acting is good, but no game is perfect. There's this untracked collectible called Krager Bears that don't show up on the map. I got a couple just by exploring, but to get them all, most people are gonna have to just look them up online, which is frustrating. While I had fun with the combat and a lot of the guns felt great, as a whole, I just didn't like using them as much as I did with the guns in the reboot. Which is an unfair comparison, since the reboot used the best guns from across the whole series, but still. The narrative also just didn't do it for me. It's really just a slight twist on the original Ratchet & Clank formula, this time with the girl Lombax. It's by no means bad, just nothing special. I was also somewhat let down by the music. It's all good music, it just didn't blow me out of the water. The main theme is catchy enough, but every song kinda just feels like it's right out of a space-based superhero movie. Which makes sense, Mark Mothersbaugh, who did the Thor Ragnarok soundtrack, also composed for Rift Apart, and each song fits the area. The calmer moments are calm, the more bombastic moments feel epic. Maybe I've just got a hardcore case of superhero fatigue, but I was hoping for a more unique experience. Overall, despite really liking Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, beating it twice and getting the Platinum Trophy as well as maxing out every weapon, which is not required for it, I felt a little let down. So much of the hype before release raised my expectations too high, when in the end, it was just a very solid Ratchet & Clank game. And a solid Ratchet & Clank game is still really fun, just not Game of the Year fun. Overall, I give Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart a "Hey, let's go get an ice cold lemonade with the Morts" out of 10. Okay, yes. At the end of 2020, I was able to buy myself a PlayStation 5. I realize how fortunate I am. I won the lottery literally, getting to the top of the PSN queue, and by just being in a good place financially. Thank you, computer science degree. Anyway, thanks for watching, like, sub, and let me know in the comments why my opinions are bad. Follow me on all my socials, all at Mario8th, and the links are in the doobly-doo. Thanks for watching, see you next time. Let's go get an ice cold lemonade, eh? Let's go get an ice cold lemonade with the Morts, eh? Let's say we go crack out the ice cold lemonade with the Morts then, eh? Let's say we crack open an ice cold lemonade with all these Morts, eh? Out of 10.